around the world trying to provide examples of the places he's visited, from Antarctica to the Amazon rainforest, of the effects of climate change. At this point, the Secretary General believes it's very clear. You saw just yesterday the World Meteorological Organization came out with a report about how 16 of the 17 warmest years in our recorded history have happened this millennium, this century. The amount of factual information about the warming of the Earth is growing and is at this stage incontrovertible. What we believe is that as he meets with world leaders, as he meets with business leaders as well, you will see the growing consensus among all of the need to do something and to do something now. What the Secretary General said today at his press remarks in Marrakesh is that he came away from his own talk with Donald Trump with the impression that this is someone who understands business, and he understands that, therefore, he would be able to understand, therefore, the way that there are market-driven solutions for the problems that we face. You were going to say something else?
Did Donald Trump express this in the call with Ban, that he was interested in market-driven solutions, or and did he express any opinion on climate change?
No. As I think I said a day ago, this was a fairly short call of about 10 minutes or so. It was a brief introductory call. They do intend to stay in contact, though, and I do believe that they'll continue to discuss this issue. Evelyn.
Yes, to follow up my colleague's question, the entire Republican Party platform and many of its leading members believe that climate change doesn't exist and rely on charlatan scientists paid for by oil companies. Has the Secretary General addressed Speaker Ryan or anyone on this? Well, I'll ask you later. I have a question on Syria.
Well, first of all, on this question, the Secretary General has been very clear, and you can see any number of speeches he's given over his time as Secretary General about the realities of climate change. There are many speeches in which he's had to confront the arguments of skeptics head-on, and he has done so. The facts are on our side, and we believe that anyone who looks at the facts and who actually sees what's happening, the recorded facts just of climate-related events, of the effects of warming temperatures, of the effects of desertification, of the melting of the polar ice caps, of any range of phenomena related to climate change, will see that this is something that is real, that is happening, that is serious, and that needs to be dealt with urgently. Yes, Matthew, and then
sure.
I
was trying to actually figure out on the call. You'd said it was a very few minutes in an introductory call, and then the Secretary General in this Q&A in Marrakesh said, as you may know, last week I spoke to President-elect Mr. Trump, and I brought up many issues, peace and security issues, including the issue of climate change. What were the other issues raised? And I guess if it was a very few minutes, was there really time? I mean, was it mostly Ban Ki-moon raising issues, or can you characterize in some way what was said back? And I have another COP22 question.
Well, I'll stick with saying that it was basically an introductory call. It gave him an opportunity to raise the issues that are very near and dear to his heart, and the goals of the UN and of the Charter of the UN. And as we made clear in the readout, he made clear his confidence that the U.S. and the UN will continue to have a strong relationship, and that they'll work on issues of peace and security, sustainable development, and human rights throughout the world.
Right. Do you know if he raised Yemen?
I don't believe that this was a discussion on specific country topics.
And the other one on COP22, I just want to ask you, is one of his other answers was at length about Morocco, and it didn't mention either. So I wanted to know, yesterday you'd said you thought it was being worked out on the ground, Sulma Beiruk, this representative who was banned from attending COP22. Was it, now that he's there and he's already spoken, and I guess he's met with the king, was she able to access it? What's your report back on that?
Well, first of all, the meeting with the king is happening, I think, more or less right now as we speak. We'll get a readout of that meeting later. Regarding the case of this particular NGO representative, yes, we had heard on the ground that it's being worked out. I do not know what the arrangement is. You can also talk to Nick Nuttall, who's been our source of information on this as well. Yes, Olga.
Thanks, Farhan. I have a question on Syria. What information does UN have on the situation in Aleppo after the reports that in the next 24 hours it will be an offensive in the city?
Well, in terms of that, what I can say, our latest information is that we are extremely concerned about the sharp deterioration of security in the western countryside of Aleppo due to reports of an increase in fighting and aerial bombardment. Unconfirmed reports indicate that many people have been killed in civilian infrastructure, including medical facilities and educational facilities, have been badly damaged as a result of the increased fighting and bombardment. The United Nations reminds all parties of their obligations to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure under international humanitarian law and humanitarian rights law. Beyond that, of course, we're still waiting and hopeful for any sort of agreement on the ground that would give us the access we need, but we have not gotten that so far. Iftikhar?
Thank you, Farhan. According to the latest FBI figures published today, there has been an alarming 67% increase in hate crimes against Muslims in the United States. Does the Secretary General have anything to say on this?
On that, what we can say is that recent reports of hate crimes in the United States are of great concern. The Secretary General roundly condemns all forms of discrimination, racial, based on gender or gender orientation, ethnic, and religious. All reports of hate crimes should be thoroughly investigated and, when confirmed, vigorously prosecuted. Tariq?
Thank you. I think you answered the question about the SG meeting with King of Morocco. If you can just tell us what issues he's going to discuss with him besides climate change. This is one question. The other one is about the special representative to Yemen. I hear that he's in New York. Is he going to meet with Security Council with the SG when he comes back? Is there any news about the reaction of both parties to the conflict? What's happening in Yemen?
Well, with Yemen, he's not here right now, but we do expect at some point he'll come to New York and brief the Security Council, and we'll keep you apprised of when he does that, and we'll see whether we can bring Mr. Sheikh Ahmed to talk to you. You're aware of his priorities. In recent days and even in recent hours, the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has been also trying to help with efforts to revive cessation of hostilities, and so we'll monitor how that develops. But certainly we appreciate any efforts, any additional support in terms of getting us to a resumed cessation of hostilities in Yemen. Regarding Morocco, we do anticipate a readout of the Secretary General's meeting, but like I said, the meeting is something that's just been happening, so hopefully this afternoon we'll have something for you on that.
But is the envoy... Oh, I saw this John Kerry announcement that the Houthis agreed to a ceasefire beginning Thursday, and which the Hadi side said that is too unilateral. But was the envoy present? What's his role in this mediation by John Kerry?
Well, he's been meeting with different parties. As you know, in recent days, he has been traveling to Sana'a and to Riyadh to meet with the various parties themselves. And certainly, Ismail Sheikh Ahmed welcomes the efforts of John Kerry to support the peace process in Yemen, and hopes that his recent visit will contribute to a peaceful and comprehensive end to the conflict.
Was he in Oman? I mean, was the envoy in Oman?
He's traveled to a number of places. I believe he's been in Oman, but there's been a series of visits over the recent days. Yeah.
Sure. I want to ask you about South Sudan. There's Radio Tamazuch has a report quoting an unnamed aid worker that a woman was found raped and killed just outside the UN camp in W.A.A., and the aid worker says that the UN is not patrolling even as women get firewood, and is calling for a increased deployment by the UN to W.A.A. Are you aware of that, and what is the UN's posture in W.A.A.? Does it believe that there are killings happening just outside its base, which it's not taking action to try to prevent?
Yeah, the UN mission in South Sudan, UNMISS, was informed yesterday afternoon of a deceased body of a female located some 3 kilometers from the W.A.A. protected area adjacent to the UNMISS compound. The mission is deeply concerned by this apparent killing of an unarmed, innocent civilian. UNMISS urges the local authorities to undertake a rigorous investigation to find the perpetrators of this crime. The mission also urges community leaders to actively engage with UNMISS to find ways of ensuring that they can together further improve the safety of vulnerable persons and all other civilians living close to the base. Since early May, UNMISS female-formed police units have been providing escort to women and girls who leave the area to look for firewood and other non-food items. And the mission continues to encourage community leaders and internally displaced people to use these escorts for their protection.
And just on Burundi, I asked, I guess, Friday and then yesterday about this letter, and I'm sure you've now seen it, that the ambassador of Burundi, Albert Shinjiro, has said that the letter exists and that the request is essentially that either there be another envoy or that anything that take place with incoming Secretary General Guterres. He gave a number of quotes out. So I just wanted to know can you clarify whether the Nkurunziza government has requested any change as to the status of Mr. Benamar, and separately what your response to that is, and also if you have any comment on the forthcoming ethnic census that the government has announced, which many people there are saying is a frightening echo to what took place in the country next door.
Well, we'll have to see what the details are of that as that census is being developed. But obviously, our past concerns would be relevant. Regarding Jamal Ben Umar, of course, the basic point is that he continues to be the Secretary General's Special Advisor, and he works on the Burundi file with the full confidence of the Secretary General. Decisions by the Secretary General designate are something I cannot speak to at this point. We'll have to wait for when he takes office.
But now that Shinjiro said there's a letter, can you at least say that there is a letter and then try to?
The Secretary General has received a letter. I mentioned that there had been an exchange between them. I said that last week. Yes.
On the bombing in Syria, Russia and/or Damascus has also bombed Idlib and Homs. And do you have anything on that? They say they're combating ISIS. Is ISIS in any of these places, or is it still Nusra?
Well, we're very concerned about any sort of actions that are near population centers, and we believe that any actions, whether their actions against Daesh or otherwise, have to take into account the tenets of international humanitarian law and international human rights law, and that would mean ensuring that there's no strikes against heavily populated areas that could cause a major losses of civilian life, and of course we stick by that. Have a good afternoon.